authority. Felly, diolch yn fawr.
Diolch, Gwynfor, and I echo those positive comments. A lot of really good initiatives taking place, and I did attend one of the Tanya Scouse workshops in Rhyl some time ago when they had Dr. Cymraeg doing a presentation. If you haven't seen Dr. Cymraeg on Facebook, then you've missed out. He's well worth catching. He's excellent. I can't see any other hands being raised. The recommendations before you that we approve the Welsh Language Standards Annual Monitoring Report for 2024-25 for publication on the authority's website. And secondly, notice the service's intention to publicise the document as noted in Standards 155, 161, 167. Publication will be on the service website and corporate social media accounts, namely Facebook and Instagram. Can I have a proposer, please? Thank you, Gareth Sandlands. Thank you, Diolch yn fawr, Gwynfor. Will you show that you agree? Diolch yn fawr. So we move on to the next item, which is the authority's 2025-26 budget review for information. And back to you, Helen. Diolch.
Diolch. This item is the financial update for the 2025-26 financial year. And I'm going to start by echoing Elgan's relief that we can now effectively close down 24-25. The audit's happened, we've got the unqualified opinion. And the reason for that is we're a relatively small finance team, and to actually juggle between 3 financial years is really, really challenging. So this item is for information, and it's to provide yourselves, members, with an update on the current financial year. The update covers both revenue, capital, and also the balance sheet items such as borrowing. In terms of the revenue budget, the budget funded from levy is 51.8 million pounds. And as at month 6, that's as at the end of September, our forecast for the full year is an underspend of around £250,000. There's further detail contained within the report, so I'll just highlight the key headlines. Turning firstly to the income, we know what the levy is. That's fixed, and we receive that on a monthly basis from our constituent local authorities. In addition to that, we've had higher than anticipated levels of income from our investment balances. Interest rates remain high. We very carefully manage our cash, and therefore our investment income is higher. In addition to that, as we've spoken about previously in the meeting, we've got additional grant income from the Welsh Government. Our main area of expenditure relates to pay. That accounts for over 70% of spend, and the expenditure was below budget for the first 6 months. Number of key reasons for that. We had higher than normal retirements for operational staff, and this gives rise to underspends whilst posts are advertised and filled. In addition to that, when we do fill a post, we have staff on development pay as they move through into competence, so you always have that lag. Following a significant recruitment process over the last few months, and that's included from ACFO all the way through to firefighter, we're now up to establishment, and that means that our watches and departments are now up to strength, and will therefore, we anticipate that the actual spend will align to the budget. It's not to say that people don't retire, so we've further recruitment planned for the early part of 2026. We've talked today about rural availability, and a key feature of that is that absolute focus on recruitment of our retained colleagues. So the headcount has increased, but due to the use of more flexible contracts has resulted in lower than anticipated expenditure. What I can say is that recruitment is continuing, notwithstanding the fact we're doing a lot of work around the whole time. Running in parallel are those retained recruits courses. In addition to that, you can see within our executive team that we've had requirements in year. So again, we're currently holding 1 vacancy, and we've had periods of underspend. Our corporate staff vacancies are also showing an underspend against the establishment. And again, that is due to those experiences that when people leave, there's always a lag before you fill the vacancy. And we've also got some very niche roles that we need to recruit to. For example, we've just recruited a new corporate planning manager. In addition to that, we've had a vacancy around organisational development, and I'm delighted to say that we've been successful, which means that again we're close to that budget. In terms of our supplies and services, some revenue budgets, such as the replacement of fire helmets have experienced slippage, and that's by design. There's a lot of work being undertaken around contaminants, and a decision has been made to defer that into a future year. We've also benefited from lower than expected utility costs, and some of the expenditure on minor repairs is profiled into the second half of the financial year. Our capital financing costs are very heavily weighted into the second half of the financial year, and what that actually means in practical reality is, although we need to borrow, we haven't borrowed from the 1st of April, we'll borrow sort of in the second half. Internally, we are working to ensure that the budgets are carefully monitored and managed, and that any slippage is addressed. Moving to the capital budget, the capital budget for 25-26 totals 8.7 million, and that includes the capital plan approved for 25-26 plus the slippage from the previous financial year. We've mentioned previously that we've been successful in securing the grant funding from the Welsh Government Energy Services, and that really enables us to do works that we probably otherwise wouldn't be able to fund. The year-end forecast spend is 6.5 million, and as I've just previously mentioned, that plan is very heavily weighted in the second half of the financial year. That includes delivery of vehicles, a number of the property schemes and ICT projects. They are carefully monitored. We have a finance committee within the service, and that meets on a regular basis. In terms of how we actually fund our capital, it's managed through a mixture of borrowing, reserves and grant funding. And we have prudential indicators, and they're set out on pages 366 and 367 of the report. And that confirms that our borrowing is currently 15.3 million. As the capital programme matures during the financial year, it will be necessary to borrow to fund expenditure, and we're working closely with our own Treasury Management advisors in terms of the timing and both the source of that funding. Chair, I'm happy to take any questions that members may have.
Helen, any questions or comments from members? Helen, please. No. Councillor Gareth Sandilands?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to confirm that what position we are as of 70% is to fund wages. Where are we with the expectation for next year's pay awards, and how have we come to that conclusion?
Thank you very much. I think it's a really salient question. With your permission, Councillor, can we pick that up in the next item? Because the next item is actually the forward look into 2026-27. What I can say though is it probably exemplifies some of the difficulties we have, because we do our budget setting around now, but very often the pay settlement isn't agreed until either just before the start of the financial year or afterwards. So this year it wasn't a million miles apart. We budgeted 3%. And it came in at 3.2. So what we've been able to do is effectively absorb that pressure through vacancies that we've experienced. We're not always that lucky, especially where pay awards are sort of significantly out from the planning forecast. But I know we'll touch on pay awards in the next item with your agreement.
Okay, thank you, Helen.
Any other questions or comments for Helen? No, I can't see any hands being raised. So the two recommendations are that we note the projected revenue and capital variances for 2025-26 financial year as detailed within the report, and note the financial risks where the nature of figures forecasted in this report are prudent. Can I have a proposer, please? Thank you, Gareth. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Mark Young. Can you all show that you approve, please? Diolch yn fawr. That's been passed. So we now go on to budget setting for 2026-27. But I think it may be David that's introducing this item. David?
Da ni wedi cael blwyddyn dwythaf ar archwiliad, da ni wedi cael blwyddyn yma gen Helen, a da ni'n mynd ŵan I flwyddyn nesaf. We've had last year's accounts with the audits. We've had this year's situation from Helen and now we're going to next year's budget setting for 26-27. And what we got here is just a high-level presentation on the planning assumptions, strategic developments, and timescales for next year's budget setting process. The authority must set a balanced budget by January, and we've got a meeting on 19th of January to do that. But the whole process has been scrutinised by the Budget Scrutiny Working Group, and that's met, I think, on 4 occasions. And the members today were asking the authority, the full authority, just to note the planning assumptions, the Budget Scrutiny Working Group's proposed reporting timetable, and the proposal that we take the initial budget estimates, which hopefully will still be the final budget estimates, other than something late comes with the Welsh Government budget or whatever, on the 15th of December. That goes to the Audit Committee and Executive Panel on the same day. And then the proposal to approve the budget on a timescale of 19th of January. I'll pass over to Elgan to go through a few of the details.
Diolch, David. Yeah, so as David's highlighted, the Budget Scrutiny Working Group has been set up since July. So we've had a couple of meetings and we've looked at key assumptions, key risks, and the next meeting is scheduled for later this week, where we'll hopefully be looking at a sort of a second cut of the budget, but also starting scrutinising the business cases as well. David's highlighted that we, as an authority, we must set an annual balanced budget, and part of the work that the Budget Scrutiny Working Group does is looking at percentages we can put in for pay award, what does the capital programme look like. So it's looking at all the different levers that we can pull to get to a balanced budget. There's a couple of sort of bigger risks within the budget setting. So in terms of ECR, the discussion that's been had today in terms of nucleus crewing, that is, we're expecting that our coverage doesn't change in terms of headcount and numbers. So the establishment is as is. So no changes to establishment figures. There's also the Chief Fire and Rescue Advice Report for Wales, published a report back in July 2025 with recommendations across 3 main categories. And we are looking at implementing some of those and the business cases to feed in through to start them from the 1st of April. And one of the papers we had early on in the agenda is around the training centre and costs to take us to RIBA Gateway 4, which is a target of April 2027, has been included in terms of the capital cost and the capital financing cost associated with taking us to that stage. In terms of the key assumption, the pay award, I believe in the paper states 3.5%. The discussion at the last budget scrutiny meeting and going into the next one is to look at module. What would a 4% be, or what would be a 3% pay award look like? Currently, we're modelling 4%. Our budget for retained staff is based on headcount, so not fully staffing all establishments across all retained station. It's based on staff in post, with then a sort of a headroom then to increase establishments to account for recruitment in retained staff. Non-pay cost is looking at unavoidable costs, especially those associated with health and safety. The teams have to do non-pay, have to do business cases for those. So any new expenditure with £10,000 needs a business case. And we do zero-based budgeting. So we ask that all budget holders look at their budget annually, and they do a 10-year capital plan and a 3-year revenue plan. And this year we've asked them to start from scratch again and to do it from start. In terms of capital financing, we're looking at utilising the prevailing PWLB rate, which are 4.6%. And that is the cost of as spurring the money they pay for capital, because we do not receive a capital budget or capital allocation. So it's all funded through the levy and the revenue. There's a couple of risks associated with budget setting that we're working through, as Councillor Sanderson highlighted, around the pay award uncertainty. We've also still seen supply chain cost pressures, especially when it's across our facilities and building improvements. Debt and interest rate is fluctuating and is providing a little bit of risk in our need to reprofile our borrowing from the short term to the long term. So with Arlene Close, our Treasury advisors, we're looking at that. And then grant income volatility as well. We're assuming the same level of grant as last year, but they are to be confirmed by Welsh Government. So I'll pause there.
Gareth, does that answer your question, or do you have a supplementary? Yeah, great. So any questions or comments for Elgin or David or Helen? No. So there were 4 recommendations that David has referred to. Yeah, go on, David.
Just to gadarnhau, just to confirm, Helen and myself met with the treasurers of the 6 authorities a couple of weeks back, and that's and Elgan, of course, in that meeting as well. And that conversation was very useful. I think they understood our position, and things like the pay award percentage, which Councillor Sandlands mentioned. We went through that with them, and they understand why that the firefighters would probably we have to budget for a slightly higher percentage increase than for local government staff, just because of the risk that the probability that the settlements would probably be higher. And they were understanding of our position. Helen and myself also met with one of the managers of the Clwyd Pension Fund and the actuary last week, and we had some promising news. So on the pay, I think the last meeting of the scrutiny group was saying, well, we probably need to put 4% in, and that was being prudent but realistic rather than 3.5%. And the local authority treasurers agreed with that. On the pensions, there's some sort of promising news on that, and there's a meeting of the fund employers. I know it's the not the majority of staff in the LGPS scheme, but we do have quite a few, and there's a meeting with the Clwyd Fund on the 26th of November with all their employers, and hopefully they'll have a reduction then in contribution rates. How much is difficult to say at this point in time. So we're still in a state of flux really for next year's, and we'll report again on those details to the scrutiny working group. But before we finish, I'd just like to thank the members of the scrutiny working group for the work they've done, and they're continuing to do so. It would be really good to get one of the members from Wrexham onto that group. If any of the members from Wrexham here today are willing to join us for the last couple of meetings, that would be really useful. And with that, diolch Cadeirydd.
Diolch yn fawr, David, and yes, really important to have those good lines of communication between yourselves and the local authority leaders and 151 officers. So you've referred to the 4 recommendations in the report. Can I have somebody propose that we accept them, please? Diolch yn fawr, John Winmore. Diolch yn fawr, Anne. So will you show that you agree? Diolch yn fawr. So last and certainly not least, we come to item 22, the Community Risk Management Implementation Plan for 2026-27. The consultation first draft for approval, and the floor is once more yours, Mike. So go out with a bang.
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. So the purpose of the report, as the Chair said, is to go through with members the Community Risk Management Implementation Plan for 2026-27, and to seek approval to consult with the public on the proposed improvement and wellbeing objectives. So members will be aware that we have the 5-year plan, and that this plan that we're looking to get approved today is for the year of 26-27, which is year 3 of that. So just to review as well, that there's a few pieces of legislation that or guidance documents that influence this. The Welsh Government Fire and Rescue National Framework 2016 looks at managing risk. Also we mentioned earlier that the Local Government Wales Measure 2019 requires us to record how we're going to improve, as well as the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, which we mentioned earlier. Also of note is the Social Partnership and Public Procurement Wales Act, that looks for the authority to work with the trade unions on looking at risk, etc. And I can confirm that the trade unions have had a version of the draft CRMIP. So the observations from the executive panel, the CRMP was taken to both the executive panel on 17th of March 2025, the draft version, and the authority meeting of 28th of April 2015, at which time members approved its publication. Just a couple more points. That the consultation, should it be approved by members today, will be hosted on the authority's website utilising a 365 application, and it will be run between the 20th of October, i.e. today, and the 14th of December 2025. It will be promoted by a number of internal and external communications, including the use of social media via our corporate communications team. It is intended as well that the members of the authority, public, staff and other relevant stakeholders will provide feedback as part of that prior to it publishing it following the meeting of the authority on the 16th of March 2026. In other words, any amendments or suggestions for amendments will have been agreed by that time. Bydd fersiynau Saesneg a Cymraeg ar gael ynghyd â fformat hawdd I darllen. There's English and Welsh versions will be made available along with like an easy read format. There has been an equality and socio-economic impact assessment, as well as a data protection impact assessment, which we're required to do. And as I mentioned earlier, just to clarify that once we receive everything back through the consultation, it'll be presented to the exec panel on the 16th of March 2026 and circulated to members of the audit committee. And the final version will be presented to the Fire Authority on 16th of March 2026 for approval, and should that go ahead, it will be published on the 31st of March 2026. Once it's been published, then we will continue via the service leadership team to review how it's being implemented via the SLT's performance board. So again, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank as well the planning performance team, who've done a huge amount of work to gather all the data and information and to put the plan together, as well as all the heads of department who've worked hard on departmental objectives that feed into that. So that's the Community Risk Management Implementation Plan 26-27 report, and I'm happy to take any questions if required.
Yeah, well, Mike, any questions for Mike? There's no hidden surprises in this report. It's providing continuity going forward in terms of the 5-year plan. In that case, I'll move to the 2 recommendations that Mike has referred to. Can I have a proposer, please? Thank you, Anthony, and thank you, Carol. Will you all show that you agree, please? Diolch yn fawr. That brings today's proceedings to an end. A long but very productive meeting. Thank you very much, everybody, for your contributions. Diolch yn fawr iawn pawb am eich cyflwyniadau.
Diolch.
Diolch, thank you.